She stumbled through the misty forest and found a tiny cub shivering on the ground, but in the shadows, his mother was waiting, silent and watchful. A tiny cry cut through the forest mist and she froze. The morning mist hung thick in the forest, curling around ancient oaks and tangled underbrush like a living, breathing fog. Lena's boots sank into the damp earth, leaves squelching softly with each careful step. She had set out early to hike the quiet trails before the weekend crowds arrived, craving the solitude of the wilderness. But the solitude was broken suddenly by a small, desperate cry, high-pitched and pitiful, that froze her in place. Her gaze darted around the mist-shrouded landscape. The sound seemed to come from just beyond a fallen log, where tangled roots twisted into the wet soil. Her pulse quickened, and for a moment she felt the sharp edge of fear. Bears were dangerous, especially wild ones, and yet this sound, it was too fragile, too human-like in its terror to be ignored. Carefully she crouched and peered under the log. There, huddled and shivering, was a tiny bear cub, its matted fur damp from rain and mist, trembling violently with every small sob. Its dark, round eyes met hers, wide with terror and confusion. Lena's heart squeezed painfully. This was a wild creature, utterly alone, yet somehow trusting enough to look at her, pleading silently for help. She whispered softly, "It's okay. I won't hurt you." Her voice was trembling slightly, betraying the fear she tried to hide. The cub inched forward, small claws digging into the muddy soil, and then, as if sensing the warmth of her coat, nestled briefly against her hands. Lena wrapped the tiny animal gently, feeling its rapid heartbeat against her chest. Each beat resonated through her arms, a reminder that this fragile life was in her hands. A sudden rustle in the branches above froze her blood. Shadows shifted subtly, and a dark shape loomed briefly among the leaves, eyes reflecting the soft morning light. Lena's stomach dropped. She realized with a mix of awe and dread that the mother bear was near, hidden but watchful, evaluating every gesture. One wrong movement, one careless breath, and the natural instinct of a mother protecting her cub could turn deadly in an instant. The cub whimpered again, tiny claws gripping Lena's sleeve, and she instinctively hugged it closer. The mist thickened, curling around the forest floor, and the world seemed to narrow into the three figures: Lena, the cub, and the hidden mother. Lena's thoughts raced. What should she do next? Step back? Stay frozen? Every possibility seemed equally perilous. Time felt suspended. The forest was alive with whispers, the distant call of a bird, the drip of water from wet leaves, the rustle of unseen creatures. Lena could feel the tension of the woods pressing in, a reminder that she was an intruder in a world governed by instinct and survival. And above all, the mother bear's presence, silent yet commanding, made her acutely aware that trust would have to be earned, not assumed. Lena took a slow, careful step backward, and from the shadows came a low, deliberate growl vibrating through the mist, warning her that every choice from this point forward would be scrutinized. Every snap of a branch made her flinch. The mother bear was closer than she realized. Lena's pulse raced as she froze mid-step, clutching the trembling cub closer to her chest. Her senses sharpened instantly. Every sound in the forest became a potential signal. The rustle of leaves, the crack of a twig, even the distant call of a bird that might have gone unnoticed before now commanded her full attention. Somewhere above her, hidden in the thick canopy of ancient oaks and pines, the mother bear's eyes glinted like liquid amber, tracking each subtle movement with predatory patience. The cub pressed itself into Lena's shoulder, tiny claws gripping her coat, shivering as if it understood the weight of the moment. Lena whispered softly, "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." She could feel the cub's rapid heartbeat against her chest, each thump echoing in her own ribcage like a drumbeat of urgent tension. The forest felt alive with anticipation, as though every creature was holding its breath, waiting for what would happen next. A soft snap from a branch above made Lena flinch, and the cub squeaked in response. The mother bear's head turned sharply, ears flattening momentarily, and a low, cautious growl rumbled from deep in her chest. Lena realized she wasn't just being watched, she was being evaluated. Every gesture, every micro-expression on her face, even her breathing, was being read by a creature whose maternal instinct was absolute and unyielding. One wrong move, one sudden motion, could trigger an irreversible response. She adjusted her grip on the cub, slowly kneeling to lower herself closer to the ground. The cub leaned forward slightly, sniffing the damp earth and the undergrowth, tentative and curious. Lena's eyes darted upward to where the mother bear lingered in the shadowed trees. The bear's gaze never wavered, muscles tensed, yet there was no immediate aggression, only assessment, a silent demand for proof that Lena could be trusted with this tiny life. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of wet pine needles and moss, mingling with the faint, earthy smell of the cub. The mother bear's ears twitched, her eyes narrowing as she analyzed the scene. Lena held her breath, realizing how thin the line was between safety and danger. She had to communicate with stillness and intention, a silent pact of mutual understanding that transcended words. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours. Lena shifted her weight slightly to allow the cub to peek over her arm, offering a small sense of freedom without threatening the mother bear's domain. The cub's eyes, wide and innocent, met the mother's glimmering amber gaze, and for a moment, the forest was suspended in a delicate balance between instinct and trust. Lena whispered encouragement, her voice barely above a breath, and the cub leaned slightly into her warmth, tiny paws brushing against her sleeve. Every movement Lena made was deliberate. She slowly reached a hand toward a nearby patch of moss, letting the cub explore, but keeping her other arm wrapped protectively around it. The mother bear shifted slightly, limping closer on the forest floor, still hidden partially by shadows, growling low and deliberate. Lena's stomach twisted with a mix of awe and fear. She had never felt the weight of such scrutiny, nor the silent power of a mother's protective gaze. Suddenly, a twig snapped sharply to her left. The cub squeaked again, eyes wide, and Lena froze completely. The mother bear's growl intensified, resonating through the mist and the damp forest like a warning drumbeat. Lena's chest tightened. She knew she had reached a pivotal moment. The bear was testing her. Every heartbeat, every breath mattered. She could feel the cub trembling more urgently now, as though it understood the gravity of the trial unfolding around them. Lena's eyes met the mother bear's, and for a split second time seemed to stop. The growl cut through the mist once more. She realized the mother was deciding if she would be allowed to protect the cub or be dismissed as a threat. She knew every move mattered. One false step could endanger them all. Lena's muscles tensed as she adjusted her hold on the cub, feeling its tiny body quivering against her chest. Every fiber of the forest seemed alive, each whisper of wind through the branches, each droplet of condensation falling from leaves, magnified in her senses. She realized that this was no ordinary encounter. The mother bear's presence infused the very air with a palpable weight of expectation. Every action, every breath, was under silent scrutiny. The cub peeked over her arm, its wide dark eyes darting nervously toward the looming shadows above. Lena whispered softly, encouraging it to stay calm, her voice a quiet anchor in the misty wilderness. "It's okay. I've got you." The cub's tiny head nuzzled her neck, a fragile show of trust. Yet Lena could feel the subtle tremble beneath her hand, an instinctive, primal anxiety inherited from the wild, and she understood that the mother bear's influence was the source. Above them, a branch groaned under the weight of the mother bear as she shifted her position. Her amber eyes glinted through the morning mist, observing Lena's every move. The low rumble of her growl vibrated in the damp forest, a warning and a measure of maternal concern. Lena could sense her presence, deliberate and calculating, and she realized that trust was not something to be demanded. It had to be earned through stillness, patience, and respect. The cub sniffed at Lena's sleeve, then darted forward slightly, curiosity battling caution. Lena froze, her heartbeat hammering in her chest. The mother bear's ears twitched and the growl deepened, reminding Lena that she was not alone in deciding the next move. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, the mist curling in swirls around tree trunks, the moss damp underfoot, every sound amplified in the silence. Minutes stretched in suspended tension as Lena slowly knelt fully, lowering herself closer to the cub's level. The cub inched further out of instinct, exploring her coat and the forest floor beneath. Lena kept one hand gently resting on the cub's back, while her free hand moved with the utmost care, brushing a damp fern aside. The mother bear's gaze followed every motion, and Lena felt the unmistakable weight of scrutiny, the forest's invisible scales measuring every heartbeat, every thought, every intention. A sudden rustle to the left startled the cub, making it squeak and curl closer into her arms. Lena's eyes flicked up immediately. The mother bear's growl rose in volume, not violent but assertive, resonating through the mist like a living drumbeat. Lena froze, inhaling slowly, trying to communicate calm, patience, and goodwill through her posture alone. This was more than survival, it was a fragile negotiation between species, an unspoken dialogue of instinct and empathy. The cub leaned against her, tentatively pawing at Lena's sleeve. Lena whispered reassurance, feeling a delicate warmth spreading through her chest despite the anxiety gnawing at her. The mother bear shifted again, limbs taut, assessing, testing Lena's resolve. Lena realized with sudden clarity that this was the cub's chance to learn trust through her actions, not words. She had to convey care without overstepping, love without threatening the protective instinct of the mother. Each second became a careful, tense dance. Lena stepped ever so slightly backward to offer more space, allowing the cub a hint of freedom, while her eyes never left the amber glow of the mother bear above. It was a balance of proximity and patience, a quiet testament to the mutual respect forming slowly in the damp forest air. A sudden, sharper snap of a branch echoed behind them. The cub froze mid-movement, and the mother bear's growl escalated, her amber eyes locking onto Lena with an intensity that made her blood run cold. This moment would define whether trust could survive or collapse entirely. Her heart raced as she realized the bear was testing her patience and courage. The forest felt alive around Lena, every droplet of moisture clinging to the leaves, every rustle of the ferns amplified in her ears. The cub wriggled nervously in her arms, its small paws gripping her coat as though it understood that the moment was critical. Above them, the mother bear's amber eyes glinted from the dense canopy, a silent judge of Lena's intentions. Each measured movement Lena made was scrutinized. A single misstep could shatter this fragile trust in an instant. Lena lowered herself fully to the moss-covered ground, careful not to jostle the cub. The forest floor was slick with dew, and the air smelled of wet pine and earth, earthy yet comforting in a strange way. She extended her free hand slightly toward the cub, letting her presence speak of calm and reassurance rather than control. The cub sniffed her hand hesitantly, then nuzzled closer to her neck as if searching for warmth and safety. From the shadows above, the mother bear shifted her weight, each motion deliberate. A low growl emanated from her throat, resonating through the misty forest like a warning drumbeat. Lena could almost feel the weight of it in her chest. The bear wasn't threatening outright, it was evaluating, testing. The mother's body language was precise. Limbs coiled, muscles taut, ears forward yet twitching. It was instinct in motion and Lena had to respect it. She took a slow, measured breath, trying to synchronize her rhythm with the cub's. The cub's eyes met hers, wide and innocent, and a pang of protectiveness surged through her. She realized that this tiny creature depended entirely on her judgment and composure now. She whispered gently, barely audible over the soft hum of dripping water from leaves above, "We'll be safe. I promise." A sudden snap of a branch nearby made the cub whimper, and Lena froze, holding her breath. The mother bear's growl deepened, resonating from the shadows like the low vibrations of the earth itself. Lena's heart pounded. She understood now that the mother bear was not just protective of the cub's body but of its trust, its willingness to survive in this forest. Every instinct of the wild was focused, precise, and Lena was learning to match it with patience and care. Minutes passed in tense stillness. Lena adjusted her hold slightly, letting the cub peek over her arm at the forest floor. Tiny droplets clung to its fur, glistening in the faint shafts of filtered sunlight breaking through the mist. Lena noticed how the mother bear's stance softened fractionally, a subtle shift that spoke of cautious curiosity rather than aggression. It was a sign, however slight, that trust might be forming if she continued to act with care. The cub pawed gently at a patch of moss, testing Lena's reaction. Lena didn't flinch. She whispered encouragement, her voice a soft melody in the dense, humid air. Above, the mother bear's eyes never left her, amber orbs gleaming like molten gold through the shadows. Lena could feel a silent communication passing between them, words weren't needed here. The forest was their witness, holding every heartbeat in suspended tension. Suddenly, a rustle came from deeper in the forest, accompanied by the faint snap of a branch. Lena froze, her eyes locking with the mother bear's. The cub whimpered softly, pressing closer to her chest, and Lena realized that the forest had just introduced a new, unseen presence. Another test of her composure and the delicate trust being forged. Every second was a negotiation, and the forest held its breath. The forest seemed to close in around Lena, mist curling like silent whispers around the damp undergrowth. Her hands held the cub firmly yet gently, feeling its tiny heartbeat thrum against her chest. Each pulse seemed to echo through the still morning air, a fragile rhythm that bound them together. Above, the mother bear's amber eyes glimmered in the filtered light, partially hidden by the thick branches, watching every micro-movement, every nuanced shift in posture. Lena realized she was part of a silent negotiation, one that had no words, only instinct, patience, and trust. The cub shifted in her arms, its tiny claws brushing against her jacket. Lena lowered her voice to a barely audible whisper. "We'll be okay, just stay with me." The cub's head rested momentarily on her shoulder, then lifted, scanning the forest floor as if to reassure itself that this strange human presence wasn't a threat. Lena's eyes flicked upward, catching the mother bear's shadowed form amidst the leaves. The growl had softened slightly, a subtle acknowledgement that Lena's restraint and calm were being recognized. The mother bear's body was taut, muscles coiled like a spring ready to respond to the slightest sign of danger. Lena's stomach twisted with a mix of awe and fear. She understood that trust here was not a given, it was earned moment by moment. One wrong motion, one careless gesture, and the delicate balance could shatter. Her own breath came slowly, deliberately, a quiet rhythm to match the cub's anxious breathing. Lena's gaze drifted to the surrounding forest, noticing the patterns of light and shadow that shifted as the mist moved. Shafts of sunlight pierced through gaps in the canopy, illuminating droplets of dew that hung from moss-covered branches. The cub's small eyes followed the glimmers of light, curiosity fighting caution. Lena whispered softly, "It's safe, see, nothing's here to hurt you." The cub seemed to understand, nudging her neck in a faint show of trust. From the shadows above, the mother bear shifted again, her growl a low vibration that resonated through the damp earth. Lena froze, hands still, letting the cub peek over her arm at the forest floor without interference. Each small exploration by the cub was a test, both for itself and for Lena. She had to allow the cub freedom while simultaneously respecting the mother bear's invisible boundary. The forest itself felt alive, watching, judging, the mist thickening like a protective shroud. Minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by the soft drip of water from leaves and the faint, distant call of a bird. Lena's mind raced. She wondered if the mother bear had ever experienced a human offering care rather than threat. Could her own calm, careful gestures convince the wild creature that she meant no harm? Could she navigate this delicate balance without angering the protective mother? Every instinct in her body screamed caution, yet empathy drove her forward. The cub whimpered, tiny claws gripping her sleeve, and Lena's heart clenched. She shifted slightly, lowering herself so the cub could explore the mossy ground with her guidance. The mother bear's gaze followed every inch, amber eyes bright with unspoken intent. Lena sensed the message loud and clear: prove your worthiness. Prove your trustworthiness. Just as Lena extended a gentle hand to let the cub touch a fallen branch, a sudden sharp crack echoed from deeper in the forest. Both cub and Lena froze. The mother bear's growl escalated, resonating like thunder through the trees, and Lena knew instinctively that a new challenge had arrived, an unseen presence threatening their fragile, newly forming trust. Something shifted in the forest, and Lena realized danger wasn't far behind. The forest had fallen into a tense hush. Even the wind seemed to pause, holding its breath as if it too were watching the unfolding drama. Lena's hands remained firm around the trembling cub, whose tiny body quivered with instinctive fear. She could feel the rhythm of its heartbeat, rapid and fragile against her chest. Above them, the mother bear's amber eyes glimmered through the dense canopy, alert, measuring, waiting. The forest seemed to thrum with anticipation, every leaf, every twig a part of this living, suspended tableau. Suddenly, a shadow flickered in the misty distance. Lena's breath caught in her throat, and the cub squeaked, pressing closer into her coat. The mother bear's growl rose in a low, steady vibration, not yet aggressive but filled with clear intent. Lena realized with a jolt that they were not alone. Something, or someone, had entered the forest, unseen but deeply felt, disturbing the fragile balance she had been trying to maintain. Lena's mind raced. Could it be another human? A predator? The forest was full of hidden dangers, and she knew the cub had no way to defend itself. She adjusted her grip, lowering herself slightly to offer both protection and reassurance. The cub peeked over her arm, dark eyes wide and searching, tiny claws brushing gently against her sleeve. Lena whispered softly, "We're okay, just stay close to me." Her words were a small anchor against the tension thickening around them. From above, the mother bear shifted. Her body was coiled, muscles taut, every motion deliberate. Her growl vibrated through the damp earth, a warning both to Lena and to whatever shadow had entered their midst. Lena felt the weight of that watchful gaze. It was a reminder that this was the wild, where instinct ruled over reason, where the safety of a cub outweighed all else, and where trust had to be proven with every heartbeat. The cub's head lifted slightly, sniffing the air as if it sensed the shadow too. Lena's heart ached at its vulnerability. She wanted to shield it completely, yet she understood the delicate dance unfolding. She could not move recklessly. One sudden gesture could trigger panic or aggression. Slowly, carefully, she shifted her weight, keeping the cub's body close while allowing it a tentative glance around the forest floor. A sharp crack from a distant branch made the cub yelp, and Lena froze instantly. The mother bear's growl deepened, resonating like a drumbeat through the trees. Lena's chest tightened. The cub's tiny claws dug into her jacket as if holding on for its life. She could feel the tension, the unspoken demand from the mother. Prove that you can protect, that you can act with calm and courage. The mist swirled around them, creating ghostly shapes among the trunks and ferns. Lena realized she had to remain still, to communicate safety without movement, to act with patience rather than fear. Every instinct screamed caution, yet her empathy for the cub and respect for the mother bear guided her like a compass. She whispered softly, brushing the cub's fur gently, a gesture of reassurance and calm. Minutes stretched like hours. The shadowy presence had vanished, or perhaps it was merely waiting, unseen. The mother bear's growl gradually softened, her body relaxing fractionally, but her gaze never wavered. Lena could sense the silent dialogue between them. She was being tested, observed, measured not only by the mother but by the forest itself. Each heartbeat, each controlled breath, was a part of this delicate negotiation of trust. Just as Lena allowed herself a small exhale of relief, a low, guttural rumble echoed from deeper in the woods. The cub stiffened in her arms and Lena felt the hair rise on her neck. The forest was warning her that the shadow had returned, closer this time, and whatever it was, it would demand a choice: stand firm or risk losing everything. Every snap and rustle felt like the forest itself was holding its breath. The low rumble echoed again, vibrating through the damp forest floor and rattling Lena's teeth with anticipation. She tightened her hold on the cub, feeling the tiny body shiver in her arms. The forest seemed alive in every sense. The mist curled like living tendrils, leaves glistened with dew, and every shadow appeared to shift with intent. Lena's eyes flicked upward to the mother bear, partially concealed in the branches above. Her amber gaze was unwavering, focused like a living lens on every movement Lena made. The cub whimpered softly, tiny claws brushing against Lena's sleeve. She whispered encouragement, her voice a thread of calm in the charged air. "We're safe. I'm right here." Yet she knew that safety was fragile, contingent on trust earned in these tense, silent moments. Every instinct she had was focused on remaining still, deliberate, and patient. One careless movement could destroy the fragile truce they had formed. Above, the mother bear shifted her weight slightly, limping with subtle discomfort but maintaining a vigilant stance. Her growl was steady, measured, not yet aggressive but full of warning. Lena understood the message: prove your calm, prove your intent, prove that you were worthy of this cub's trust. She slowly lowered herself to the ground, creating a more equal plane with the cub and signaling non-threat. The cub leaned slightly forward, exploring the forest floor under her careful guidance. Every sound in the forest became magnified: the drip of water from leaves, the rustle of ferns, the distant call of a bird. Lena's senses sharpened. She noticed subtle changes in the mother bear's posture: a slight softening of her shoulders, a less tense stance, a hint of curiosity in her amber eyes. This was progress, a fragile shift in the delicate balance of trust. Lena felt a surge of hope, tempered by caution. She could not yet let her guard down. The cub sniffed at a patch of moss and poked at a fallen leaf, tentative and exploratory. Lena's hand hovered nearby, ready to protect, ready to reassure. She realized that the cub was learning too, not just about her but about patience, safety, and trust. The mother bear's presence was a living lesson in caution and observation. Lena could sense that the cub's instincts were sharpening, guided by both her steady hand and the watchful eyes above. Then the forest shifted again. A low snap from deeper within the trees made the cub squeak and curl into Lena's chest. The mother bear growled louder this time, the sound reverberating through the mist like a rolling drumbeat. Lena froze, holding her breath, and felt the cub's heartbeat hammering against her own. She realized that the shadow that had threatened them before was near again, closer than before, testing their resolve. Lena's mind raced. Every option had consequences: stand firm and risk confrontation, move and risk panic. She chose patience. Slowly, deliberately, she tilted her head slightly, meeting the mother bear's gaze. The message was simple: we are calm, we mean no harm, we are allies. The amber eyes studied her, the growl subsiding to a deep, low rumble that vibrated with maternal scrutiny. The cub pressed closer, tiny nose nuzzling her neck, drawing a comforting warmth between them. Lena realized something profound. The forest, the mother, and the cub were all connected by instincts and bonds that transcended language. The trust was mutual, delicate, and earned step by step. Just as Lena allowed herself a momentary sigh of relief, a louder crack came from the dense shadows, startling both cub and mother. The mother bear's stance stiffened instantly, eyes blazing with alertness. Lena felt the tension spike. Whatever waited in the forest had come closer, and she knew the moment of true decision was imminent. Every step through the mist felt like walking on a tightrope between fear and trust. The forest had grown denser, the morning mist thickening into a ghostly veil around Lena and the cub. Each movement had to be deliberate. Every sound could ripple through the delicate balance that held their fragile peace. The cub pressed against her chest, tiny claws digging lightly into her coat, as if seeking both warmth and protection. Above, the mother bear remained vigilant, amber eyes gleaming through the fog, limbs coiled like springs ready to respond at any instant. Lena's heart raced, but she forced herself to slow her breathing, matching it with the cub's tentative rhythm. She took a careful step forward, feeling the damp moss yield softly underfoot. The cub wriggled slightly, curiosity outweighing fear as it peered at a cluster of glistening leaves. Lena whispered reassurance, "It's okay, look, nothing's going to hurt you." The cub's tiny head lifted, dark eyes wide with wonder, and for a fleeting moment the tension eased. The mother bear's growl vibrated through the trees, a low, resonant hum of protective authority. Lena knew she had to communicate calm and respect through every gesture, every breath. Slowly, she lowered herself onto the forest floor, letting the cub explore more freely under her watchful gaze. The cub's tiny paws trailed over the moss, brushing fallen twigs, testing textures and shapes. Lena remained perfectly still, letting the cub's instincts guide its movements while ensuring that her presence never became a threat. The mist swirled around them like living curtains, muffling distant sounds and intensifying the isolation of the moment. Lena could feel the weight of the forest pressing down, not oppressive but alive with observation. Every snapping branch, every rustle of leaves, was magnified in her senses. She realized that this was more than a simple rescue. It was a delicate negotiation with nature itself, an unspoken understanding between human and wild. Suddenly, the cub squeaked, startled by a shadow passing across a distant patch of ferns. Lena froze, her pulse quickening. The mother bear's growl deepened, vibrating in the earth beneath them. Lena held her breath, letting the cub press against her chest as the tension mounted. Her mind raced. What could it be? Another animal? A human intruder? Or simply the play of light and shadow in this dense, misty forest? Minutes passed like hours, the forest silent except for the occasional drip of water from dew-laden leaves. Lena slowly extended a hand toward the cub, letting it touch a mossy rock. The cub sniffed curiously, then looked up at Lena as if seeking approval. The mother bear's stance softened fractionally, her growl subsiding into a low, steady rumble. Lena felt a rush of relief, but she knew better than to assume safety was permanent. The cub began to explore further, stepping tentatively toward a cluster of ferns while Lena stayed crouched, ready to catch it if needed. The mother bear's eyes followed every movement, yet her posture remained alert, coiled, measuring Lena's patience and the cub's curiosity. Lena realized that the forest, the cub, and the mother were all entwined in an invisible dance, each observing the other, testing limits, defining boundaries. Mini cliffhanger. Just as Lena allowed herself a fleeting sense of calm, a louder, sharper crack echoed through the mist, followed by a low, rumbling growl not quite from the mother bear. Lena's head snapped toward the sound, heart pounding. Something, or someone, was drawing closer, unseen, and she realized that the most critical moment of trust and courage was about to arrive. The forest held its breath as Lena faced the decision that could change everything. The mist clung thicker than ever now, weaving around tree trunks and ferns like a living curtain, obscuring the shapes that moved silently through the forest. Lena felt the weight of every heartbeat in her chest. The cub's rapid pulse pressed against her, trembling with instinctive fear. Her eyes scanned the gray haze, searching for any hint of movement, while above her, the mother bear's amber gaze followed every shift of posture, every twitch of muscle. The growl that had softened in moments of trust now held a sharp edge, reminding Lena that the forest was alive with unseen eyes. The cub pressed against her chest, small paws clutching at her coat as if tethering itself to her presence. Lena whispered soothingly, soft words barely audible over the quiet hum of the forest, "Stay calm, we'll get through this." Her own breath came slowly and deliberately, a fragile rhythm of reassurance and control. She knew that any hint of panic could provoke the mother bear, or worse, the unseen presence that stalked through the mist. The low rumble returned, deeper this time, vibrating through the forest floor. Lena stiffened, understanding that it was closer, observing. A deer? Another predator? Or perhaps a human intruder unaware of the delicate balance unfolding here? Every instinct in her body screamed caution, yet empathy and courage guided her hands. She shifted slightly, keeping the cub close, letting it peek over her arm at the mossy ground, exploring while staying safe. The mother bear's growl deepened, resonating like a drumbeat through the forest. Lena felt its message clearly: protect, respect, remain calm. The cub's tiny head lifted, sniffing the air, nostrils flaring as it tried to sense the unseen intruder. Lena's heart clenched. She realized that this was not merely a test of courage, it was a test of her ability to read the forest, to understand the rules of trust and instinct, and to act with patience and precision. A sudden snap of a branch echoed nearby, startling the cub into pressing its body tightly against hers. Lena froze, listening, counting seconds that felt like minutes. The mother bear's amber eyes burned through the mist, observing Lena, the cub, and the unknown presence. Lena's mind raced. Could she move forward without alarming the cub or provoking the mother? Could she protect the fragile trust they had built? She tilted her head slightly, slow and deliberate, a silent signal of reassurance to both cub and mother. The forest seemed to pulse with tension. Every shadow felt like a potential threat, every whisper of wind a secret message. Lena realized that this was the culmination of every moment since she had first found the cub, a delicate, invisible negotiation with the natural world. The cub's tiny paws pressed against her chest, seeking stability, and she whispered, "We'll be safe, together." The mother bear's stance shifted slightly, muscles coiled but less rigid, amber eyes glimmering with cautious understanding. And then, just as Lena felt a fragile thread of calm, a dark shape emerged from the mist, a large figure moving deliberately toward them. The cub squeaked, instinctively pressing tighter against her chest. The mother bear stepped forward, body tense and powerful, growl deep and resonant. Lena knew in that moment that the forest test was reaching its apex, and the next few seconds would determine the fate of trust, courage, and survival for all three of them. In the heart of the mist, everything depended on one silent choice. The dark shape paused, partially hidden in the swirling mist, revealing the unmistakable silhouette of a large, lumbering bear. Lena's breath caught. Her pulse raced, but she held the cub close, whispering words of reassurance that she barely felt herself. Above, the mother bear stepped forward with deliberate authority, amber eyes locking onto the intruder. The tension in the forest was nearly tangible, every leaf, every branch, every drop of dew suspended in anticipation. The cub squeaked softly, instinctively pressing its face against Lena's chest. Lena's hands remained firm, calm, a steady anchor in the storm of fear and instinct. She realized that everything hinged on trust now, between herself and the mother and the cub, and between both bears and the unseen balance of nature. The approaching bear stopped several feet away, sniffing the air, growling softly in acknowledgement of the mother's presence. Time seemed to slow. The mother bear's growl softened, body tense but measured. Lena felt a profound realization settle over her. This was the language of the wild, raw and unfiltered, yet deeply governed by empathy and instinct. She had navigated fear, uncertainty, and danger through patience, respect, and calm courage, and now the moment of resolution had arrived. Slowly, deliberately, Lena lowered herself to the forest floor, giving the cub freedom to explore. Tiny paws hesitated at first, then nudged toward the mossy ground, testing the textures, the smells, the small world that had become a sanctuary. The mother bear watched closely, amber eyes glimmering with cautious approval. The cub's squeaks softened into curious sniffles, a small sign that trust was solidifying between human and animal. The approaching bear, a large, protective male, possibly the father of the cub, paused, evaluating the scene. Lena remained perfectly still, letting the silent communication of the mother bear dictate the flow of interaction. Slowly, the male bear stepped back, then sat on his haunches, the tension dissolving just enough to allow for cautious breathing. Lena could feel the forest exhale with them, the danger diffused through understanding rather than aggression. The cub began to explore further, stepping gingerly from Lena's arms to the mossy earth. Lena watched with a mix of awe and relief. The mother bear's growl subsided entirely, replaced by a low, rumbling comfort, while the father bear, large and imposing, remained at a respectful distance, acknowledging Lena's role as protector. The cub paused, looking back at Lena, then back toward its mother, a connection bridging human and wildlife through simple, mutual trust. Lena knelt in the moss, letting the cub return to her arms for a moment before slowly setting it down to reunite fully with its mother. Tears pricked at her eyes as she realized the enormity of what had transpired. She had bridged two worlds, earned the trust of a wild mother, and protected an innocent life without breaking the sacred rules of nature. The forest seemed to shimmer with quiet acknowledgement, shafts of light piercing through the mist, illuminating the triumphant reunion. The mother bear nuzzled the cub, amber eyes glimmering with maternal pride and cautious gratitude toward Lena. The cub, now steady and curious, pawed gently at Lena's hand in a subtle gesture of recognition. The balance had been maintained, fear transformed into trust, danger into understanding. Lena's heart swelled, knowing that respect, empathy and courage had forged an unspoken bond that would remain forever etched in the forest. Lena rose slowly, taking one last look at the reunited family. The forest held lessons that no words could fully capture. Trust is fragile, courage is quiet, and empathy bridges worlds that might otherwise remain separate. She whispered to herself, "We are all part of this forest together." Turning back toward the path home, Lena carried with her the knowledge that even in fear, patience and respect can create miracles. What would you have done if you found a cub alone, watched over by a protective mother? Remember, moments of courage and empathy can change lives, for humans and animals alike. If this story touched your heart, consider liking and subscribing to witness more incredible journeys of trust and survival in the wild.